Hi, guys, and welcome to Wellness with Watson. This is the hero's journey. This is the segment where I interview someone about their journey in transformation from going from challenge to triumph. Today, we have a really special guest on. I know that most of you who watch me are local from Wenatchee, and you probably have seen Wenatchee Seekers on Facebook. And today we have George on to tell his story. He is the founder of Wenatchee Seekers. So welcome, George.
Hi,
Hi, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, little
Yeah,
nervous.
yeah. So we are talking about transformation and the hero's journey. And I know that you have had quite a transformation,
Mhm.
and we want to hear your story. So, can you share a bit about your background and what led you to your experiences with homelessness and addiction?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to start off with I get very emotional when I talk about this stuff, so bear with me, please. Um, I like a lot of people grew up in an alcoholic home, dysfunctional home. Not just because of the alcoholism, but because of I assume because of the way my folks were raised. And so there was a lot of I wouldn't there I guess there was some physical abuse. I mean, the spankings might have lasted longer than they needed to or been harder than they needed to be. And there was objects used, not just a swat on the butt, right? But there was also emotional neglect. There was verbal abuse. Um, and so with alcoholism, being on both sides of the family, not so much my mom, but her family. My dad was very much alcoholic in his family, and so that lifestyle just kind of it was normal to me. It was just a normal thing, so seeing it from the day you're born, it just becomes normal. Um, my brother, I'm the youngest of three. My brother being the oldest, and then a sister who's in the middle, and then me. My brother quickly became addicted. Um, I don't know at what point. My sister also, um, and I guess it was just a matter of time before I did. I mean, I started using at right around 6, 7 years old, sipping NyQuil. I didn't know that I didn't know that I was getting drunk. I honestly just liked the flavor of it. Um, I think my mom loved the idea that I was taking naps on my own. I didn't realize I'm getting drowsy because of the NyQuil. Uh, and actually, she didn't even know that I was doing this until just a few years ago, honestly. It just came out in conversation. Um, I think it, uh, I think it broke her heart a little bit. Um, but anyway, going back, because of my home life, it was just home was not a safe place for me. So I quickly found solace on the streets. Um, Out there, I was being encouraged, and very much the wrong type of encouragement. I was encouraged to do the bad things. I was good at stealing. I was good at breaking and entering. I was good at not getting caught at those things. But when you get no encouragement at home, all you get is abuse at home. Encouragement is encouragement, right? It felt good, and I was rewarded. Sometimes it was, a few bucks here and there. Sometimes it was a plate of food. Sometimes it was a joint or a beer, but a reward is a reward, right? At least when you're that immature and just you just don't know any better. You think, oh great, this is awesome. Um, when I didn't feel safe going at home, the big homies, they said, come stay, come, I got a couch for you, and they gave me a pillow and a blanket and dinner, um, and I don't want to take away from the things that my mom did. My mom did try, but she was being abused herself, from by my alcoholic dad, and I don't recall ever her being physically abused, but she was also neglected. She was also verbally abused. She was cheated on. Um, so, and she had two other addicted children and work and home life to take care of. So, it was just I don't know. I just I got the leftovers. I feel like, um, which just wasn't enough. So
So you're
anyway,
the youngest. You're the
yeah,
youngest. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. And what
So
town did you grow up in?
this was in Las Vegas.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Is your mother still in Las Vegas?
No, she's actually here in Wenatchee now.
Oh, good. Oh,
She's
good.
she's the reason Wenatchee is home today.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it was going to school um, was a waste of time for me. Um, I had I had to eat, so I did things that put food in my belly. I would go to school, but I pretty much dropped out in the sixth grade. But I continued going until my junior year. Um, and because school was, I mean, it's hard to be a sixth grader hanging out on the street without drawing attention to yourself selling dope. It was a lot easier to have less attention on me around other kids my age. But those kids were putting money in my pocket. I was able to sell dope at school. So it was I guess you could say a marketing type of I don't know what you'd call it. It was work for me. Uh, in fact, I remember teachers telling me, they'd be surprised when I came to school. Um, like, what are you doing here? And um, some teachers even bought dope from me because they knew why I was there. You know, so I continued going until it was just until I didn't need to. Until it was normal for me to be out on the street. Um, until it was I was just another teenage dropout, that nobody cared about, that whatever. I I eventually stopped gang banging because that's how the dope game started for me, was through gangs. I eventually did quit gang banging and just went full time into selling dope because now I had to pay rent. Now I had to pay bills, and so um, I did get a job. I did work, but those were like school for me. I was making minimum wage or just above minimum wage, which eh, I don't think at any point in history minimum wage has ever been enough to live off of. So I had to supplement my income, right? Um, Eventually, I got an apartment where I was so selling dope for me at that point. I was selling weed, and because I was back that was back before it was legal, right? And so I moved into this apartment complex where, side note, I would meet my future wife. Uh, I I moved in there, and I was one of two uh, pot dealers. everybody else sold crack. Um, and I mean everybody. So I was surrounded by it, and I would always joke that I got all the crackhead money because the people smoking crack would give their money to the dealers, and then those dealers would come to me. Um, well, eventually, I've always been curious. You know, and it's at this point it led to my detriment because I started wondering, why are these people giving up everything for this drug? Well, eventually I found out. It got the best of me. Um, I had I'll call him a friend for lack of better terms. He came over one day and he had a joint, and he said it's a primo. And for me at that point, that meant cocaine, you know, a joint sprinkled with some cocaine. And so I asked him, because I knew he smoked crack. I said, so is this cocaine? And he said, yeah. Okay. So I partook in the primo joint. Um, it didn't, it just, it made me feel like I had never felt before. Um, I knew instantly it wasn't just cocaine. Um, I knew instantly it was crack cocaine. Uh, and eventually, you know, I started inviting him over because I wasn't going to go buy crack. I wasn't a crackhead. I wasn't going to go do it. I was better than that. Um, so I would invite him over, right? Because I knew he had some, and so we would do that. And eventually, I started trading my bags of weed for rocks, right? And I was smoking my own primos, and I don't know at what point the marijuana became less. The ratio became less. It was less marijuana, more crack cocaine, until eventually it just was crack cocaine. Um, I My lease ran up at that apartment. I thought that was going to be the end of it, but it wasn't. I moved in with um, a really good friend of mine at the time, a woman. I had she offered me a room in, and instead of paying rent, I just had to babysit her son. She was a dancer. Again, this is in Las Vegas, so that kind of dancer. Um, so she was gone at night, and so really I just had to be there while the kids slept, which left me all night to be free to continue my habit. Um, Eventually, that led to my first bout of homelessness. Um, because I mean, you can only hide that for so long. Uh, she found out she didn't want me there anymore, and like I mentioned before we started this I'm a very prideful man. So my only option was to go home to my dad. I wasn't gonna do that. I was I was a 20-year-old know-it-all, and I mean, you know, at this point, my dad had been uh, so my dad died with right around 30 years sobriety. So he was sober at this point. So I wasn't going to go home and tell my dad, you know, I'm a drunk and a drug addict and I need help. Because at 15, probably younger than that, honestly, in my head, I was already a man. I didn't need him, right? I didn't need his help. So at 20, you can imagine, I'm not gonna need another man's help, not even my dad, who wants to help me. Um, so again, that was my first bout of homelessness, which honestly just lasted, I don't know, a few weeks. Um,
So tell me about your first night ever on the street. What was that like for you? Was that a culture shock? What like when you first
Not
started?
really. No, it
No?
was no, because while I was officially homeless at this point, I had spent many a nights on the street.
Oh yeah.
Nights I didn't go home. I would fall asleep leaned up against the wall, surrounded by people I thought were my homies, right? My friends, right? I'd wake up alone. Um, but again, I'm, 15, 16, 18-year-old badass, and um, I knew all the OGs that if all I had to do was call them and they had my back. If anybody did anything to me, if anything happened to me, I was taken care of. So I wasn't scared.
So were you like couch surfing kind of? It's kind of like the party life a little bit then at that point, so it didn't feel real to be living on the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Um, but my first night that I was actually homeless, it was like I say, not so much a culture shock, but it was kind of surreal, I guess, right? Because now I know that I can't go home. I have no home to go to. And again, my pride is not gonna let me call a friend and say, "Hey, I'm homeless." My pride is gonna wait for that friend to offer it to me, which it did. People did offer it to me, and of course, I would take them up on it. Um, but you can only sleep on somebody's couch for so long, right? I mean, you can only eat out of their fridge for so long. Um, and the people that are offering me a place to stay, they're adults. And granted, a lot of them are doing things today I would disagree with. But when you got a wife and kids, I'm I'm eating their food, right? And so they would just hey, I'm sorry, man, but you got to go. And so, like I say, it lasted a few weeks, maybe. Um, and eventually, my dad was like, "Dude, just come home," because he wasn't dumb. Um, he was taking me out to eat. He'd buy me cigarettes, and I was open with him, and he said, "Just come home." So I did. Um, and so the woman I mentioned in the apartment complex, we had dated a little while, um, and she was from here in Washington. Uh, she lived in she's from Ravensdale, which is over on the west side. It's in King County. Um, she got in touch with me out of the blue, and we started talking again. And she asked me to come visit. She said, "I'll buy your ticket to come here. When you're ready to go home, you buy your ticket back." I said, "That's cool, fine with me. Free trip to Washington. I'd never been there, never been here." Excuse me. Now that coming to Washington, that was a culture shock. Um, I had never. Las Vegas was the biggest city I'd ever known. It was back then. It was probably a little bit bigger than Wenatchee is today. Um, and so going to places like Seattle, I was like, wow, this is city life. Um, Never lived in Seattle, thank God. Um, I shouldn't say that. I I still wouldn't mind living in Seattle. I actually love Seattle. Anyway, um, it was a culture shock. I mean, I had never people in people in Western Washington, and I am going to say that out loud. People in Western Washington are different. Um, Different than this side of the state, different than the area I grew up in. They were just people in Las Vegas didn't let you go through the intersection first. They didn't wave at their neighbors. They didn't buy your coffee because they were in front of you at the line in Starbucks. So that's what I mean by culture shock. And also, I'm not a political person, so I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but I had never experienced liberalism, right? Most people that I grew up in were very conservative. In Las Vegas, they were very conservative. So that was my norm, right? And so experiencing that was just a whole nother experience. So anyway, I moved to Washington, and I'm still addicted to crack cocaine. In fact, I moved to Washington with, I can't remember, my pocket was full of crack cocaine. This was before 9/11. This is in 2000. So I could literally have it in my pocket on the plane. I had traded an illegal gun for it because I couldn't travel with an illegal gun. So I got here, and my first night, I sold most of it to the woman that would become my mother-in-law. And then the rest of that got either smoked or sold. And that was that. I quit smoking crack. I didn't know people. I didn't know where to get it. And at that point, I already knew I had a problem with it. So I wanted to stop. And the fact that it was just not available to me made it easy. But I continued drinking, continued smoking weed. And then that woman got pregnant. So that kind of solidified for me the fact that I wasn't going to go home to Las Vegas, because I'm just not the type to abandon my kid. It was a very toxic relationship with her. We did end up getting married after our daughter was born. In 2002, we got married. And we stayed together. We stayed married until 2019. But like I say, it was just a very toxic relationship. And so at one point, a really good friend of mine, he married a woman who had two children from a previous relationship. So he was a stepdad. But now she got pregnant, and it was his son, and he was so excited about it. And now this is 2017, and I don't know the circumstances. I don't know the details, but the baby was lost. She had to deliver a stillborn, and so I was sorry. I was there with him at the hospital, and I was leaving the hospital, and I went across the street to this gas station because I still I still maintain that this gas station had the best fried chicken in Washington State. And so I was going there I'd been at the hospital all night, and so I was going there to get some chicken. And this woman approached me and asked me for a ride down the street. And being the good Christian that I am, I said, okay, I'll give you a ride down the street. And turns out this woman was working, if you know what that means. And we just kind of laughed at each other because she knew I was not going to be her John. And I'm just laughing at her because she thought I was going to be And I dropped her off down the street. Now she had offered me $20 for this ride 2 blocks away. So I'm very much a smartass. And so I said to her, "Hey, where's my $20?" And she said, "Oh yeah, that's right. Here you go." And she whips out this rock. And I was just like, wow. I was just blown away because I didn't know what to do. Um, which isn't true. That's very much a lie. I knew what to do. I just froze. I couldn't do it. It sat on my armrest in between my two seats of my truck that I was driving at the time. I drove all the way home, and I know there's a devil because with all my slamming on the brakes, with all my sharp turns, that rock never slid off that armrest. Um, and I all I had to do was toss it out the window, right? But I didn't. And I guess it's not fair to say to blame it on my horrible marriage at this point. Um, but one of the things, one of the struggles I was going through at the time was pornography. Um, and the particular pornography I was watching, looking at, encouraged drug use. Uh, so I got home and I've got the next few hours to myself before my daughter gets home from school, who, mind you, at this point is a junior in high school, um, and had always been a daddy's girl from day one. Um, so I I decided to I decided to try it because the porn I was watching said that it would enhance it all, right? It's so embarrassing and to even say that. Um, so I tried it and instantly hooked again. Uh, Immediately, I think within a couple hours, I was back looking for that woman, um, in Tacoma. So my wife and I had bought a house in Pierce County. It was in Buckley, Washington, which is about 30 minutes from Tacoma. Uh, so I within a couple hours, I was back there looking for more. And the 12-step program that I work has a very accurate saying: one is too many, and 1,000 is never enough. Um, so I didn't just go buy one rock, one $20 rock. I was shoeing horses at the time, which was a very lucrative career. If anybody ever wants to make some money, get into shoeing horses. Uh, so I had all this money in my pocket, so I went and bought $200 worth. Uh, and that was probably the least amount I ever bought at that from that point on. It turned into, I'm not exaggerating. It turned into $1,000 a day habit. Yeah, holy shit. um, so so I began smoking crack again. And at first you think you can manage it, you can hide it, but like I said, it's not something you're gonna hide for long. Um, at this point, uh, my marriage was in such a bad state. Um, her and I were sleeping in separate rooms. The last 4, 5, 6 years, we slept in separate rooms. Um, the last 10, 12 years, we were not intimate at all in any way, shape, or form. Um, So it was somewhat easy for a while to hide my new habit, or my rediscovered habit. At one point, um, I I had to come clean. I had to come clean because I was only going to work long enough to make some money. I could set my own appointments. I could make my own schedule, and I would only go to work because I didn't have money to smoke. So I would go work for a few hours, make $1,000, and then go buy some dope. Well, as you can imagine, money was being missed. Like my my wife at the time, she's asking me, how come you're not depositing money into the bank? How come you're not contributing to bills? Um, and it was this the the horseshoeing business was, I either got paid cash or checks, mostly in checks. Most people paid me with checks. And it was not abnormal for somebody to say, "Hey, my husband or my wife drove off today with the checkbook. Can I mail you the check?" So, for a little while, that would get me through the week. Oh, they're going to mail me the check. Well, eventually, when the checks don't start coming in, eventually you're going to start asking questions again. And I ran out of excuses. I had to come clean. I had to come clean. And I, so like I had mentioned earlier, my mother-in-law was also smoking crack. So in that period where I wasn't smoking crack, um, I would tell my wife, we've got to stop enabling her. Stop giving her money. You know what she's going to do with it. Um, Basically, what I'm getting at is I I I feel like I taught my wife how I gave her the tools to, um, love her mother from a distance, to set boundaries, um, and so she had to use those boundaries with now with her husband, right? I clearly wasn't doing what my job of protecting my house, so she had to. So what that looked like was, you got to get out of the house. We had this 30-foot camper parked in the backyard. I moved into the backyard in our camper. Um, Eventually, we had to sell the house because I wasn't contributing. Um, so that started my second period of homelessness. Um, and at least I had the camper. It was functioning. I still had heat. I had a shower. I could fill it with water, and which of course I didn't. Of course I didn't, because I had to smoke crack, right? That took precedence over everything. So I didn't take care of the camper. I had it full of all these things. I thought I was gonna. It was ridiculous. I had a lawnmower in my camper, because when I left the house, I thought, I'm going to land on my feet. I got a job. I'm still making all this money. I'm going to need all this stuff. And I did need it eventually, to trade, to sell, so I could continue my habit. Um, so at one point, I'm living, if you know the west side of the mountains, I'm living just outside of Issaquah on Tiger Mountain. Um, and it was it's crazy how God works in my life. I One of my addictions to this day is sugar. It's love me some sugar. Um, I, uh, I I had this night where I So first of all, I went and bought all this crack. I came back to Tiger Mountain, took my dogs out for a walk, came back in all excited to smoke all these rocks, and they were all gone. It was about $500 or $600 worth. It was all gone. I lost it somewhere. Um, so I'm just like, oh my gosh, what did I do? So what do you do? Well, as a crackhead, you go buy some more. Um, so I went and bought another bunch. I don't know how many $100 worth. Come home and I have my exciting night of smoking crack. And I say that very facetiously, by the way. Um, I I uh, I think it's silly to say I woke up in the morning because didn't really sleep, but I wake up in the morning, take my dogs out for a walk. Just had my two dogs at the time. I have three today, but I took out my Chewy and my Remy. We go for a walk, and I come back in, and it starts raining. And I'm making my cup of coffee, and I didn't have any sugar for my coffee. And I'm sitting there drinking my coffee black because I also at this point would use lots of French vanilla creamer because I used to love that. Um, and I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, black, plain black coffee, listening to the rain because it started raining. And I looked at Remington, my lab, and I remember out loud saying to him, Remy, I don't even have sugar for my coffee. What the fuck are we going to do? And dogs being dogs, he just looked at me and he just looked at me, right? And I felt like he was telling me, "Calm on." Uh, and at this point, everybody in my life knew. My mom knew. All my best friends knew. I confessed to them. I was blessed with a trip to Brazil, and so I told them on the Amazon River what was going on. Um, I told my daughter. She was actually the last one to know. Because how do you tell a daddy's girl that her dad's smoking crack? So she was the last one to find out. But anyway, everybody knew. Um, and so I called my mom and I said, Mom, I don't know what to do. And she said, Come home. And at this point, I'd only ever visited. She'd been in Wenatchee close to 20 years at this point, I think. Um, Wenatchee was never home. Mom was home. She said, Come home. So I did. I had what I thought was just enough money for fuel, but turns out it was enough money for some dope on the way. As of course, right? Because as an addict, you always find a way to get your dope. Uh, and so I moved to Wenatchee in September of 2019. Uh, I can't remember if it was right before or right after her birthday. Her birthday's in September, but I got here and I continued shoeing horses on the west side of the state. Uh, I got here and I thought, okay, I'm gonna get clean and I can just start up my business and I'll go back. I'll go back. I'll just be here for a couple months at most. Um, well, I would go there, I would make all this money, and then before I drove back, it was a 3.5 hour drive or so. We'll call it 3 hours just over there. But then I'd spend all day driving around over there from farm to farm, make all this money, go to Tacoma, cop some dope, and then drive all the way back. And so I would be there, make $1,000, $1,500, come home with 200. And it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? And it was one Friday night. Um, I didn't have work that particular day, so I'd been here living in my camper on my mom's property over by the high school, and I've been home all day, bored out of my mind. I didn't have work, like I say, that day, so I didn't have any money to go cop some dope, because believe me, I would have. Um, so and I knew about these 12-step meetings, right? I knew about them. Everybody's telling me I should try them out. I should give it a shot. Um, and so out of sheer boredom, I went to my first meeting. And I went there, and out of embarrassment, I lied and said I had 30 days clean, which I had just over, had maybe 24 hours, not even, I don't know, somewhere around 20, 24 hours, but only because I didn't have it. Right. Um, so anyway, I lied, and you're just, I know today you're not going to stay clean living in a lie. So it was probably the next day I relapsed. I don't know. I honestly can't remember, but I eventually got some more dope, and it wouldn't be until I did get some more dope, and I continued going to meetings, and I'd go get dope, and I'd go to meetings, and that continued for a while. At one point, I actually did get actual 30 days. Uh, I was so happy. I was so proud of myself. But that monkey on my back was still on my back, and I don't I don't think I'd gotten a sponsor, but at that point, I honestly can't remember. Uh, but the point is, I wasn't working a program of recovery, and so I eventually relapsed again. Um, I eventually did get a sponsor. I eventually did get honest. Um, I did start working a program, and December 21st of that year, 2019, I guess December 20th would be the last time I smoked crack cocaine, making the 21st my clean date. Um, and by the grace of God, I still have that clean date. Um, I just celebrated 4 years this past December. Um, and I always knew, because of my brothers that I got to go to Brazil with, um, all through my active addiction. I've always been a Christian as long as I can remember. All through my active addiction, I was somewhat practicing my faith. I was still a believer, very much a believer. I was still going to church. I was just living dirty, right? And at one point, before I had started smoking crack in 2017, uh, my brothers invited me to go serve in Seattle. They were handing out PB&Js and bottles of water, and because it was Christmas time, there was a candy cane added to it. Um, and from the first time I did it, the Lord just impressed it onto my heart to serve. Um, now, I think it probably goes without saying, when I started my practicing my addiction again, that got put to the wayside. Um, but when I got to Wenatchee, when I got clean, I was talking about doing it. That I was verbalizing it. I wanted to do it, and this is just with my folks that I was talking about it. And my dad immediately, he's my stepdad, by the way. He immediately expressed his concerns. There's a lot of people out there using drugs, and I don't think it's good for you to do it. I think it's a bad idea. And I think he secretly still thinks it's a bad idea. Um, but he doesn't say it. He is very proud of me. Just want to say that he is very proud of me, uh, for both, um, getting clean and serving. Although maybe he's just scared. I don't know. Anyway, about a year into getting clean, Um, I guess I should say this. I guess I something there's a key factor in this whole Wenatchee Seekers thing that I missed. The day my daughter's mother told me she was pregnant, I quit sleeping. I have to this day I struggle with insomnia. Um, and I think it also goes without saying a lot of that was at one point very much drug induced insomnia, right? Because those type of drugs don't allow you to sleep. Um, so so anyway, one night, about a year into my recovery, I was finally able to move out of my folks' house. I got my own apartment, uh, living downstairs with from a friend who unfortunately did relapse and overdosed, and didn't make it. He's gone now. Excuse me. But I was living in his basement apartment, and one night in I think it was November. I yeah, it was November. Early November. I went for a walk. Just went for a walk with my two dogs. It's like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and and it's snowing. It's cold out, so I had this route. It was about a 3.5 mile route that me and my dogs would walk, and that was my intention to walk that route. And again, it's cold, so I have this thermos. Um, has two cups. It holds 2 cups of liquid, right? And so I made some hot chocolate, put it in there, and off we go. Made a pit stop at I think it's called Memorial Park, the one right there by the courthouse. And I met this man. He was he's watching me play with my dogs. I'm throwing my lab. He loves to fetch. He loves to fetch. And if you throw a ball right at his face, he'll catch it. And so I was making up these snowballs, throwing them at him, and he was catching them, and we're just having fun. And so this guy's watching us. He's just laughing. Uh, and so I sit down and I pour myself a cup of hot chocolate. And so there's this other thing about me, super selfish, especially when it comes to my chocolate. You are not getting my chocolate. I don't care who you are. My daughter, she might get some. Uh, but her mom spent our entire marriage trying to get me to share my chocolate with her. It got to the point where she wouldn't even want any chocolate. She just wanted me to share with her. Um, but yeah, so I'm sitting there and I feel the Lord tugging on my heart, offer this man some hot chocolate. And I'm fighting with him. No, absolutely not. It's my chocolate. I'm not sharing my chocolate. But I did. Eventually, I did. Because there's this saying that I have when it comes to God. Um, if you know the story of Jesus being resurrected from the tomb, there's a giant. They called it a immovable stone that covered his tomb. God told that stone to move, and that stone moved. So I always say, when God tells you to move, you're going to move. There's no power in the universe that will help you to stand still. You're going to move. Just ask the stone. Uh, so eventually, I offered the man some hot chocolate. Uh, and at first, he said no because I found out later he's also a prideful man. But he eventually, because I kind of pressed him, I kind of made him take my cup of hot chocolate. Um, and so he took it, and that was that. That was that. Eventually, we finished our conversation. I continued my walk, went home. The next night, I go same thing, go for a walk, but I'm not sharing my chocolate, right? So I'm still not sharing my chocolate. So I took a different route. Um, I ran into somebody else, and God said to share your chocolate. And this time I just did. The next night, I said, God, you ain't doing this to me again. I took a different route. Um, well, like I said, there is not a power in the universe. So God put somebody on that route. And after my third night, I just realized there's no route I'm going to take where I'm not going to meet God. Um, so uh, I guess in those moments, in those first few nights, is how Wenatchee Seekers was created. Um, and it's because of that that I call it the Lord's ministry. Like I'm just the guy that I'm just the front man, right? I'm just the guy on Facebook that you see. Um, and it was, I think it was my sponsor that I told that I had been doing it, and he started telling people about it. And next thing I know, I'm getting all these coats, all these jackets and sweaters, and people are giving me all this stuff. And this tiny little basement apartment that's like, I don't know, 20 square feet, right? It's super small. I have no living space because I have this huge pile of stuff. And so I'm talking to, I keep saying to my friends from church, but I call them my brothers, right? So it's one of my brothers that had invited me out to Seattle one of those times. I'm talking to him one night, and I confessed to him that I've been doing this stuff, and now I'm getting all this stuff, and so I had this plan because when I did it with them, we would do it, around Christmas time, but then for a couple years, I I I wanted to do it on um, after Christmas because I have this theory that to this day holds true. Christmas time is a season of giving, right? Well, December 25th, 26th, that season literally comes to an end. Hearts just freeze up again. People stop giving. Tis no longer the season of giving. Um, so my intention, well, what I had done in the past was January 1st. We would go out, we would go back out and serve. And what I wanted people to know by doing that after the holidays, after New Year's, I wanted people to know that some people still give a shit. There are people that still care. Um, and I said, it was, for me, it was this beautiful thing where one January 1st, this is in Seattle, of course, this guy was asking me, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I said, because you're loved, bro. He goes, well, what do you want for it? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you can't just, because I had given a friend of his a tent because this woman um, was doing what she had to do for shelter. And she had told me that. And I go, well, here's a tent. Now you don't have to do that. And she literally broke down in tears. And her friend is over here watching it. And so he's like, why are you doing this? Why? And I said, man, because you matter, because she matters. He goes, nobody's just going to give my sister a tent and expect nothing in return. And that just floored me, right? It just breaks my heart. But I told him, man, I don't want nothing. Just give me a hug. He looked at me. He goes, what? I go, well, you say you got to give me something, so give me a hug. And he looked himself up and down. He goes, you want me to hug you? I go, why wouldn't I? And he looks himself up and down again. He goes, "You want me to hug you?" I go, "Yeah, man. If you're gonna give me something, give me a hug." I said, "If not, then just accept the fact I gave her a tit." And this little man, he's physically little, short, skinny, gives me the biggest, strongest bear hug and literally lifts me up off the ground. And then gives me this bracelet, this costume jewelry. I'm pretty sure it's a woman's bracelet that he had on his wrist. I still have it on my nightstand to this day. Um, that was that. And so fast forward again back to Wenatchee and this newfound ministry that officially is not a ministry yet. It's just me wanting to do a good deed. Um, and I'm talking to my brother on the phone. I said, "Man, I got all this stuff. There's no way I'm going to be able to give it away in just one day." And I always joke with him. I credit him for starting Wenatchee Seekers with this statement. He said, "Maybe it's something you do more than once." And I thought, maybe. Um, so I did. Um, so one thing about this type of service work is I don't care who you are, it's just going to make you feel good. And now I want to stress the fact that that is not why I do it, to make myself feel good, but I can't get around it. I just can't. It's just a byproduct. It makes me feel good to know that somebody's hands are going to be a little not so cold because I gave them some hand warmers. It makes me feel good to know that somebody says, "You gave me some hope tonight." Again, that's not why I do it, but it is a byproduct. Um, so I began going out literally every night, and you made me smile before we came on. You said something about how, I forget your exact words. You said people either love you or hate you. Um, so at the time, I was working at the UPS store here in Wenatchee, and it turns out I've got some good customer service skills. Uh, but when I've been up all night, I can be kind of edgy and not on my best behavior. Not on my best. As much as I try to be on my best behavior, if you do something stupid, I'm going to say, "Hey, that was really stupid." Just no filter, right? And so one day my manager calls me in. Well, my manager and her manager, they call me to the back. They're like, "We need to talk to you. We know what you're doing and it's awesome." They said, "But it's affecting your work." And I'm like, "How?" They said, "Well, people either love you or they hate you. And we know when they hate you because you've been out all night. And they love you when you got some sleep." And so they were the first ones to tell me about balance and this and that. And so that's how Wenatchee Seekers began. And I use Thanksgiving as my anniversary for Wenatchee Seekers because it actually started before Thanksgiving, a week or two before Thanksgiving, about a week, I guess. Um, but on Thanksgiving, uh, I met a man who I met. So I use Thanksgiving because it's early. It's an easy day to remember. And but the man I met that night was a salesman. I don't. Maybe he was. I forget. I forget. I don't. I forget his position. He was working at the car dealership where I bought the car I was using that night, and he remembered me. He was sorry. That's my brother who said that statement. Maybe it's something you do more than once. Um, so I met this guy and he remembered me and he he wasn't homeless at the time, but he did admit to me that he was struggling with addiction. Um, and so those are the reasons why I use Thanksgiving as the anniversary date to celebrate the beginning of Wenatchee Seekers. Now, at that point, I didn't have that name, Wenatchee Seekers, and I sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It was just I was just talking about on my personal Facebook page. Hey, if you can, and not so much talking about it because and I've never wanted to be the guy like you see those memes where there's the guy taking a selfie of himself as he's handing somebody money. You know, I never want to be that guy. So I wasn't so much talking about about me doing it. I was saying, hey, I am doing this. If you're able to give, you know, if you can help me with some donations, with some stuff, not money, stuff, you know, please do. Uh, and because I'm such a opinionated person that talks about this or that, somebody suggested maybe separate what you're doing from yourself. And because again, I'm a Christian and I stand against um, some things that let's just say, you know, people don't agree with me, right? They don't agree with my opinion. Um, and it's hard to ask those people to help you when you're saying, I stand against what you stand for. Um, so I created the Wenatchee Seekers page. Um, and that the name Seekers has its basis in Scripture. To be exact, it's the Matthew where it says, "Seek first His kingdom, and all these things will be added to you." I think I'm misquoting, but it's to that effect. I've never been good at memorizing scriptures, but it's something to that effect. Uh, so the name Seekers, because while I am seeking God and His kingdom, I'm also literally seeking people because I'm going out in the middle of the night, you know, and so people are in the winter, they're hunkered down wherever they're going to be. They're in the summertime, they're, you know, hidden, trying to get comfortable for the night. So I'm literally seeking them out. Um, and now here we are 3 years into Wenatchee Seekers. And I, so, you know, you mentioned, you know, that people know what it is, you know, and it was never my intention to become anything, you know, other than the servant of God, right? And I never thought other organizations, other ministries would take notice. Um, but something I did early on was I wanted to connect with the people that I'm serving, and that's my main goal. That's not my main goal. My main goal as a Christian is to introduce people to Jesus Christ. Um, and I do it. I think in a unique way. Like I'm not the type to say repent or you're going to burn in hell. You know, that's not me. Right? When I read the Bible, when I study the life of Jesus, he just loved people. He served them. Right? He washed his disciples' feet. He didn't go around saying, "Look, if you don't change your life, you're gonna burn in hell." Right? He let them know like there's this kingdom of God that is beyond any utopia or ecstasy you could ever imagine. You got to live a certain way to get there. But even if you don't, because I'm Jesus, I'm going to love you. Because I am the Son of God who is love. That's all I know to do, and love you. So I'm not saying I'm Jesus. I'm not trying to compare myself to Jesus. I would never do that. But the goal is to be like Jesus, right? And so I do serve everybody, um, homosexuals, Muslims, the drug addicts, the prostitutes. Um, I remember a man who dressed as a woman. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, but he this is here in Wenatchee. He dressed as a woman, short skirts. I mean, short skirts where you saw his butt cheeks. He talked like this in a really high voice, and uh, he he prostituted himself as a woman. Um, I even called him sister. And I remember the first time I called him sister, I brought the biggest smile to his face. I don't I don't know that he had ever experienced that. I mean, his reaction, it was so warming. It was so heartfelt. Um, he was one of the first people that donated cash money to the ministry. Um, I saw him down by the bridge. You know, everybody in Wenatchee knows the bridge. Um, I saw him down there, and had a scratch off, and I was like, "Oh, any luck?" And he says, "Oh yeah." He goes, "I won $100 earlier." I was like, "What are you gonna do with it?" He goes, "Spend it." He goes, "In fact, here." And he gives me $50 cash, and I go, "Man, I'm not." I said, "Sister," I said, "Sister," I said, "Sister, this is not why I'm doing this. I don't want your money." And he says, "I know you don't want my money." He goes, "But you're out here helping all of us. Let me help you. Help us." And one thing I've learned as a Christian, as a human being, well, a couple things is people want to help people, right? And as a Christian, you, if, I'm trying to bless people, right? And if I deny somebody the opportunity to bless me, how does that look? How's that going to make them feel? Right? If I tell you no, you can't bless me, they might never bless anybody, right? Especially as a Christian man, because I mean, blessings have their basis in Christianity. I mean, if I block the blessing, as they say, they might not ever give again to anybody, right? And so I took his $50. Um, and since then, I can't tell you how many people that I serve, how many addicts living on the street have donated to the ministry Wenatchee Seekers. Uh, I recently had somebody ask me, "What can I give you? What do you need?" Um, and so side note, part of Wenatchee Seekers, part of that ministry is an SSP, which is a safe syringe program. So I exchange used needles, right? There's more to it than just that, but I get them. I get funded through the state. I get allotted X amount of dollars that I can only. I'm not want to make it clear. I don't ever receive any of this money. I can only use it on this particular medical supply website. So I don't need medical supplies. I get all the Band-Aids, all the aspirin, all the bandages anybody could ever need. But this couple living out here on the street, they get I don't know exactly how it works, but they get a, like a card or something that they can buy medical supplies. So they asked me, what do you need? Do you need any Band-Aids? At the time, I didn't, in that moment, I didn't have Band-Aids in my car to give people. Because I had just given the last few out that night. Like I said, I got a ton of them. I got Band-Aids, right? They said, do you need anything like that? So I said, I could use some Band-Aids. So they went to Walmart, I believe, because they can only buy medical supplies with this in this program that they're a part of. So they got me must be 100 boxes of Band-Aids, rubber gloves, gauze, medical tape. Again, I have this stuff. I get it. I get it from the state. They wanted to help. They wanted to give. How can I deny them that? Right?
I feel
So
like
the
in a way you are bringing that community together because they're almost scattered. They're scattered all about the town, but you are a central person that they all can connect with. And so it's almost bringing the community together so that they can pull together their resources and work together, and I
totally.
think it's such a beautiful thing. Um, so we are kind of nearing the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you, what's the future of Wenatchee Seekers? And I would really love it if you came back on again within the month. And I would like to hear some of your stories of being on the street and some of the things you've encountered. I really want to kind of go into that a little bit. I'm really interested to hear that. Um, but since we're nearing the end of our time, I think we should probably wrap it up. And I want to hear what the what the future of Wenatchee Seekers is and how we can help you. I know you have a GoFundMe up right now. How can we as a community pull together to better help you?
So the GoFundMe has nothing to do with Wenatchee Seekers. That is something that a friend created to help me personally because I've been out of work since before Christmas. So that's something totally separate. Just to be clear about that.
Okay.
Um, the future of Wenatchee Seekers. Again, this is the Lord's ministry. I always say it's led by God. I don't have a clue what is in the future for Wenatchee Seekers. I'll say this. Um, I have started the process of making Wenatchee Seekers an actual nonprofit. That's something that I've been against this whole time because for personal reasons. Um, but I'm hoping to reach more people. I'm hoping to do more than I've been able to do on my own. And it's not fair to say on my own because I always say the whole city is supporting me because literally the whole city is supporting me. I feel like so it's definitely not on my own. I am not the only uh, I'm not the only person involved. Again, I'm just the front guy. I always say that everybody that donates, I'm their front guy. Like you're the one doing the work. I'm just out there doing it for you. Um, so the future is uncertain. Other than one way or another, it will become a nonprofit. I say one way or another because I don't know the process. I'm getting help with it. With a bunch of people that know bits and pieces. But it's uncertain. Other than that, how people could help would be to donate stuff. I only ever ask for money for the ministry once a year, and it's during the fundraiser that I do in December, which obviously is past. But people are welcome to continue giving financially through different means. I have PayPal, Cash App, uh, Venmo, and then through my personal account on Facebook. Um, but more than that, I ask for, because I really do not want to be responsible for money, um, especially at this point that it's just me. I call my sponsor my treasurer. He holds me accountable for that, for the financial aspect of it. Um, which, by the way, I want to say that anybody that's given, um, you're anybody's more than welcome to ask where that money's going. I've got receipts to show where it's going. Um, those are my books. But every dollar is accounted for. Um, but yeah, once a month I post a list of things that I'm hoping to receive through the ministry to hand out. So, please take a look. I posted at the top of the Wenatchee Seekers page. Please take a look at that. See what you can give off of that list. And also, I always say, think about, if you don't see it on the list, think about what you use on a day to day. Just because people are not housed doesn't mean they don't need a toothbrush. It doesn't mean they don't need deodorant. It doesn't mean they don't need toilet paper. That's a horrible thought to think of because they're unhoused, but people still need toilet paper. Um, so yeah, please take a look at the list and see what you can give. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me either on my personal page or the Wenatchee Seekers page. Um, yeah, that's how people can help.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been so amazing today, and I'm really thrilled that you came on and shared your story with us, and we got to know a little bit more about you and how you got started. So inspirational. Ooh, I need a drink of water. But I really look forward to us collaborating again. I want to talk to you more about, your experiences on the streets. And then on a side note, I would love to help you with your strategy and online. I was thinking maybe you need a group or something. So we'll talk and we'll see what we can do. And if anybody out there's watching wants to help in this mission, reach out to George and Wenatchee Seekers and plug in, because it takes a community, it takes a village. And together we can help clean this valley up and make it a more livable place for everyone. So,
Totally.
and help people
Absolutely.
transform. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on today, George. And I will reach out to you in the coming days to schedule another session. This is going to go up on my YouTube channel on Wellness with Watson. So please be sure to subscribe, and I'll be sharing it with George and he'll be sharing it on his page as well. So
Thank you, Lacy.
yes, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking with you again next time. Ciao, everyone.